Hey there everyone, just thought I'd bring you another one of these videos. Essentially I was in Maidstone Town Centre on Saturday the 5th of May, and originally what I thought I'd do is basically put up the entire video first off, and then basically show that it's completely unedited. This is basically exactly how it went down, and then do the breakdown of the video after that. But essentially I do need to basically introduce this video, because basically I started recording about half of the way into the encounter, mainly because of my my inability to think to myself, right Adam, get recording, sort of thing. So basically there's a few more characters in this one that will need to be introduced, which I'll get to in a minute. Essentially, basically I need to think to myself, whenever I'm going to be recording something, I really just need to say, I'm getting my phone out to record, boom, start recording. So that's, that's one little thing that I need to make a mental note of. But yeah, basically I started megaphoning at midday, was megaphoning for about 20 odd minutes, and then a pair of environmental enforcement officers, if any of you guys have heard of these guys, they're basically people who, they're essentially like traffic wardens, but they're the ones who issue £75 on the spot fines if they see you, or if they pertain that you are dropping litter. And basically two of those walked past me as I was megaphoning, and I noticed when they got they were about 50 feet away from me, I remembered that at that point I hadn't explained the illegality of fines. So I started explaining through the megaphone in a respectful way, basically Section 2, Clause 12 of the Bill of Rights, as I explained in the previous video. But as soon as these two environmental enforcement officers noticed that I was talking about what they do, they spun and made a beeline for me. And essentially, I've got some notes here, because basically I needed to write down exactly what happened, so when it was fresh in my mind. But yeah, they came to approach me and basically to ask me to move on. I kept asking them, under what law am I obliged to do that? To which they couldn't answer it. Then I was approached by a security guard from the Fremlin Walk shopping precinct, as it were. It's not really a centre; it's sort of just a street with shops going either way down. It's not a shopping centre per se. But yeah, he was basically saying that that Fremlin Walk is private property, even though I was standing about I was probably standing 3 feet within what could be construed as the border of Fremlin Walk. And as you will see in the video later, one step will demonstrate how far away I was from the public walkway of Week Street and the private property of Fremlin Walk. But yeah, then two police officers approached, and they were essentially saying that they had received complaints from the merchants. It's a little weird, that one, but then again, just like with the previous police officer, they could have just made it up. Like I said in the previous video, I could go to you and say, oh, someone's made a complaint about you, but I can't really back that up, can I? Unless I actually give an identity of someone who has actually made a complaint, then I can back it up. But they can try it and say whatever they want to try and gain jurisdiction, for which I was not going to be granting them. Yeah, because it was basically at this point I started reaching for my phone and basically saying, just to let you know, I will be videotaping this this conversation for my own personal protection. And yeah, because as I said earlier, I hadn't gotten round to videotaping it yet because I do admit I was getting a bit too caught up in the task of trying to explain that I am acting lawfully. There's no law that states I can't do what I'm doing, all that sort of stuff, and and she even the female police officer at one point, she even said, "Oh, you're just being difficult now." Come on, is that really enforceable? Oh, someone's just being difficult. But yeah, that was basically just before I'd started recording. But yeah, as I said, I was getting my phone out, and the police officer, because there was two female police officers. One of them didn't say a word, but one of them was very vocal towards me, and that's the one that you'll see on the video. And essentially, just after I informed her that I was going to be recording the conversation and my phone was in my hand, I noticed that she tried to make a subtle grab for my phone, and I just whipped it back, and I'm just like, did you just try and take my phone off of me, sort of thing? And she was just like, well, I'm just asking you to leave. The thing is, but I eventually started recording because but yeah, basically the police's main argument was that I needed a license to speak publicly on a megaphone, because what I was doing could be construed in the same sort of theoretical, obligatory light as, I don't know, a music band performing. But I'm not a band. Okay, I'm just a free human being who is able under Article 10 of the Human Rights Act that you can receive and impart information without interference from public authority. Now, that's more or less the wording, but if you don't believe me, please look up Article 10 of the Human Rights Act. Okay, but yeah, that basically says that we have freedom of speech. Yeah, but yeah, basically what you see from here on out is the full video, and just thought I'd fill in the blanks of what happened before I started recording, and essentially I'm going to start breaking down the video after that. So here we go.
You're not recording me.
Well, you're in a public area, sir. I'm afraid there's no law.
Or I'll just seize it then.
Please use a Fremlin Walk. You're not filming.
I'm afraid I'm in a public area, sir. There is no law that states I cannot do what I'm doing right now.
I'm asking you not to film me.
Right, sir,
well,
you want to move off the
well,
ground.
Can you not touch me? Can you not touch me,
please? And then you can go and do whatever you want to do.
I can class that as assault if you touch me. Can I ask you not to touch me?
I'm asking you to leave. You're refusing to leave. Okay, it's not that.
I'm not refusing to leave.
Right,
I'm standing up for my constitutional right.
Then you leave Fremlin Walk.
All right. So here is that the border? What's the border of Fremlin Walk, madam? Sorry?
I can ask you to move on as well. Okay.
Under what law?
Like the PC's already explained.
Under what law? Please tell me what law.
I'm not telling you anything. I'm asking
Please, keep an eye on this sort of thing, guys.
Okay.
This is the sort of thing you do. This sort of thing that happens when you step. Why should I move?
Because why? They're too young to understand.
But why should I have to? I'm standing up for my rights as a free human being. I'm not breaking any law.
Mate, you're talking out your
Just
arse
bit.
now,
No, right. Why am I talking? Can you please provide the evidence for why I'm talking out of my ARSE? Because there's no need to use a swear word such as that.
If you don't move on, you're going to get yourself arrested.
Under what law?
You'd have to ask them that one.
So you're threatening me with arrest without knowing the law?
Just leave it to it. You want to show, just leave it to it. Just leave it to it. You've been warned by an officer last week.
I was not warned because I did not consent to his authority. There's a video up on YouTube explaining why I did not grant him jurisdiction. Okay, well, thank you very much, officers. But just as a closer, is it okay if I ask for a hug? Please. Can I ask for a hug?
Roman, I don't know the difference between a statutory law
No.
and all the rest of it.
No, they don't.
Well.
Yeah. Okay, that's the video in its entirety, completely undoctored. Basically, I'll start breaking it down now and show you what I think of it. So here we go.
You're not recording me.
Well, you're in a public area, sir. Okay, this is a point that that sometimes occurs in these kind of situations. Basically, they they always have their hand, up in front of the camera there to try and block their image, when in fact it's a bit futile because their images, just like our images, are being recorded by CCTV 24 hours a day. So the idea that him not agreeing to me filming him is a little bit asinine. As one of the things that one of the quite funny things that Charlie Veach has said in the past is that do you own the photons that bounce off of your skin? But yeah, his original claim to try and ask me not to film him was that that I was on private property, which is a bit debatable because let's be honest, the vast majority of if not all shopping centres that are declared as private property, their borders are clearly marked out by bollards. And if anyone watching this video is familiar with the layout of Maidstone Town Centre, then you will know that where we were standing is about maybe 30 to 40 feet away from the border of those bollards. So technically we may not be on private property. I mean, I spoke to the security guard later on, like about an hour later, after this whole thing, and he basically said that the Fremlin Walk website has the information on exactly what is private property and what isn't. I'd have to look that up for myself, but it's weird, isn't it? But on to the next bit. Afraid there's no log.
Or I'll just seize it then.
Please use a Fremlin Walk. You're not filming.
Okay, as you can see there, the female police officer had said that that I have to pick up my megaphone, otherwise she's going to have to seize it. Under what law? What law enables you to seize my megaphone when it's right next to my right boot? As you can see from the video there, it doesn't take any length of time whatsoever for me to pick it up. So it's not that far from me at all. It's not like I'm leaving it out in the middle of the street like a bomb. Oh no, no, it's not a bomb. It's a megaphone. Okay, so I think she was starting to be a bit ridiculous about the little legalities because she was realising that I know the law, but anyway, on to the next bit. I'm afraid I'm in a public area, so there is no law that states I cannot do what I'm doing right now.
I'm asking you not to film me.
Right, so
well,
you want to move off the
well,
ground.
can you not touch me? Can you not touch me,
And then you
please?
can go and do whatever you want to do.
I can
but
class that
out
as assault if you touch me. Can I ask you not to touch me?
I'm asking.
Okay, it was at this point that the female police officer, who was quite vocal, decided to basically cut across all of us right in front of me. And as she did so, she tried to, again subtly, to sort of like, put her hand on my arm to move me along, which personally I took as, as an infringement of my own personal space. And and I didn't want her touching me, so I just asked, can you just not touch me, please? Because the thing is, the police, they're very hot to trot when it comes to other people being assaulted, but they never, ever consider that they would not be entitled to assault another human being if it's a part of the implementation of their duty, so to speak. So they believe that they're completely entitled to touch and assault other people. But I actually made a point of asking her not to touch me and basically assert to her that she doesn't have my consent to touch me. And immediately after I said that, her hand just like flew up, sort of thing. So I could tell that I'd made some a little bit of headway there. But on to the next bit.
I'm asking you to leave. You're refusing to leave. Okay, it's after that.
I'm not refusing to leave.
Right,
I'm standing up for my constitutional right.
Okay, now that she realised that her touching me would be classed as assault, she's now saying that that I should have to move on. Basically, no, I didn't have to. There's no law that states that I have to. Essentially, her asking me to move on, and also the PCSOs are asking me to move on, is basically the state enforcement equivalent of a parent shouting at their child saying, "Go up to your room." Because basically, the police didn't want to have to deal with me. They were essentially just thinking to themselves, well, he's doing all this stuff. We don't want anyone hearing him, so we want to move him out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, sort of thing. If we can't shut him up by asking him to stop what he's doing, then we need to move him out of the area. Well, I'm sorry, but I wasn't causing a breach of Section 4A or 5 of the Public Order Act 1986. So there is no law that states that I cannot carry on doing what I'm doing, and they have no authority to even ask me to move on. And she was saying, she was implying that I was refusing. Now, I wasn't refusing. I wasn't stating blatantly any refusal to do anything that they were wanting me to do. I'm acting completely lawfully. That does not constitute a refusal. I was merely asking questions about what law obliges me to do what they were asking me to do. And besides, they were never giving any orders. They were always giving requests. They were saying, "I'm asking you to leave." I'm sorry, but if someone says, "I'm asking you to do something," is that an order? No, it's a request, and you do not have to obey a request. Just that. They were asking me to leave, and I could say, "Sorry, no, I don't feel I have to leave. I'm sorry. I'm lawfully able to do what I'm doing right now, and so I'm doing it." So there's that. On to the next bit.
Then
Right.
you leave Fremlin Walk.
All right. So here is that the border? What's the border of Fremlin Walk, madam?
Okay, guys, notice that she actually asked the question, "Will you leave Fremlin Walk?" Now, I perceive that, I don't know about you guys, but I perceive that as an attempt to gain jurisdiction, because whether you say yes, that means, yeah, you're submitting to their authority, and if you say no, then that may count as a refusal, as it were, to their authority, to which they may have something to something to do to you. So essentially, I demonstrated how ridiculous the situation was, because essentially where I was standing, more or less directly behind me, was a separation of the configuration of the ground bricks that separates Fremlin Walk and Week Street. Yeah, and as you can tell, in a minute, you'll be able to see that it's one single step took me from there to Week Street. One single step, and these guys are trying to say that I'm, breaching some kind of law, or, trespassing on doing something bad on private property, when in fact I was only just one bound, within, even by their standards, I was one step within. Basically, instead of answering that question in either the negative or the affirmative, I decided to demonstrate exactly where I would be standing, and taking into consideration her reaction, I'm starting to think that maybe me taking that step back, put me into, in their terms, the public area, and thus out of her jurisdiction. And notice that she just exasperatedly just turned around and just gave up on me.
you to move on as well.
Sorry?
I can ask you to move on as well. Okay. Like
Under what law?
Like the PC's already explained.
Under what law? Please tell me what law.
Okay, here now speaking is the environmental enforcement officer that initially came up to me and basically said that what I was doing was illegal, supposedly. But now she's saying that, you know, she asked me to move on as well, which she had, but I did not grant her jurisdiction either. So, and I noticed I asked her what law, and she said, as she's already explained. I don't know about you, but did you guys, I might have missed it, did you guys notice that there was any explanation of any law that I had broken? I think not.
Under what law? Please tell me what law.
Okay, she said, I'm not telling you anything. Does that mean that she doesn't know anything? I'm asking her what law obliges me to do what she's asking me to do, and she's failing to be able to provide any law or statute that obliges me to do what I'm doing. I mean, I could understand it if they say anything like, I don't know, breach of the peace or public order act or anything. They're not even giving any of that information. They're not even stating statutes. So the fact that they're trying to basically scorn me for what I'm doing and try and get me, oh yeah, just move on, mate. We don't want to hear you here. We've received these complaints, even though we can't back them up, but we just want you to move on. We're asking you to move on, but even though there's nothing we can do to actually, you know, oblige you, make you obliged to move on. You're completely lawfully able to, but we're just asking you to move on. But we're going to try and make this, you know, almost like a pretense of legality, in a sense, to try and get you to move on, because we don't personally, you know, agree with what you're doing. This is essentially what's happening here, folks. And so, yeah, on to the next bit.
I'm asking
Please, like, keep an eye on this sort of thing, guys. This is the sort of thing you do. This sort of thing that happens when you step. Why should I move?
Because they're too young to understand.
But why should I have to? I'm standing up for my rights as a free human being. I'm not breaking any law.
Okay, notice here that one of the young guys that was standing there said you should move, and this guy had actually, you know, he spoke to me a few times during the day, and essentially I was trying to ask him, well, you know, what law exists that obliges me to have to move on, and he couldn't answer it. That's the thing. I mean, the best explanation he could come up with, just like maybe essentially the police would come up with, like, why I should move, because it's the law. Those were his words at some point, because it's the law. But what law? What does that law say? And who does that law apply to? See, these are the questions that we should be asking ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Because notice that, you know, that I saw that these young men were standing here, and I was just saying, well, you know, keep an eye out for this kind of situation, guys, because this is what happens when you speak up. You know, because that's the thing. You know, I am a free human being. I am allowed lawfully to speak freely in a public area, as long as, even if that's using a megaphone, without having to need a license either, because there's no law that states that I can't. Okay, I'm not causing any harm, loss, or fraud, or breach of the peace to any other person. Okay, so there's that. On to the next bit.
Mate, you're talking out your
Just
arse
bit.
now,
No, right. Why am I talking? Can you please provide the evidence for why I'm talking out of my ARSE? Because there's no need to use a swear word such as that.
Okay, so now I'm talking out of my arse by saying that I'm not breaking any law. Can she provide this information? No. No, she was avoiding the question of what law am I breaking. She was essentially, just saying that I had to move on just because they say so, and if I stand up for my rights, then automatically I'm talking out of my arse. So, resorting to swearing, is that gaining you any jurisdiction? I think not. Okay, this is one of the quintessential examples of any policy enforcement officer or any similar public servant that's in an enforcement role that is trying to gain authority and is failing by basically just, well, essentially it was an ad hominem in a sense. She was basically saying, oh no, you're just talking out your arse now, seriously. Right? Why? Can you prove it? And she could not prove it. Okay? So, when this sort of thing happens to you guys, keep an eye out for it and call it out and try and question it. Say, please, can you explain why you felt the need to swear at me? And can you provide evidence? And even if you do feel the need, can you provide evidence for this? You just saying it doesn't make it so. So, on to the next bit.
That.
If you don't move on, you're going to get yourself arrested because of that.
Under what law?
You'd have to ask them that one.
Oh, dear. Sorry, I've just had to take a moment to have a good laugh at what she's just said. Essentially, she's threatening me, saying that I'm going to be arrested if I don't comply with them, but she cannot provide the evidence for that herself, and I'd have to ask the police officers why. Well, let me draw out a little parallel example. Say, for example, I said to you that if you did a certain thing with a particle accelerator, right, that a certain thing would happen, and and if it was something quite maybe unbelievable, if this didn't make common sense, if you had to have knowledge about this to know this, then they were like, well, how come? Can you prove this to me? And then say, oh, you'll have to ask the particle physicist that. Sorry, but I find it quite funny how certain enforcement employees try and claim something that they have no idea about, and they just delegate the task of proving it to other people. Okay, I'm sorry, but if you cannot prove something, then don't claim it. Okay, do not threaten with someone with arrest if you cannot prove empirically yourself that the arrest is legal. Okay, so on to the next bit, and I'm going to have another little laugh.
So you're threatening me with arrest without knowing the law?
Okay, and it was at this point that the female police officer felt the need to step in with a logical fallacy, being the, I think it would be the appeal to inferiority, basically, and she basically physically, pulled the environmental enforcement officer slightly around by the arm, as you can see, to basically, say, come on, get out of there, sort of thing. Basically, he wants a show, let's just leave him to it. He wants a show, let's just leave him. So, me being able to carry on, speaking freely on a megaphone, is not causing more of a show than me just speaking in very close quarters with two, one police officer and one environmental enforcement officer. That's not creating a show. Well, I suppose it's creating material for these videos. So yeah, maybe she was realizing that, yeah, I'm arguing my case, and the environmental enforcement officer is severely out of her depth, considering the fact that she doesn't even have the power of arrest anyway. She clearly doesn't know the law. I was asking her what the law is. She couldn't say. She was delegating the task of citing the law to me, to the police officer, who herself couldn't even cite the law. So I think she may have been realizing how doomed the idea of trying to harass and intimidate me, and trying to, scoot me off down the road where I may not be heard was failing. So, yeah, on to the next bit.
You've been warned by an officer last week.
I have.
Made
I
cancer.
was not warned because I did not consent to his authority. There's a video up on YouTube explaining why I did not grant him jurisdiction.
Right, that's fine.
Right, she said I was warned last week. Let me first point out the first flaw in that statement. I wasn't warned the last week. In fact, I was supposedly warned 2 weeks ago. The time I was there before, I was not harassed or approached at all by any policy enforcement officers. Okay, so it stands that I wasn't warned last week. I was left alone last week. So there's a flaw in that one. And then she said it may appear that she may have seen my first video, either that or the officer that tried to warn me 2 weeks previous had basically, you know, sent some banter around the police station, and she'd basically heard of it. That basically, oh yeah, there's a guy who on a megaphone talking about cancer in the high street, and you know, obviously that puts a really negative spin on it, and I dare say she probably has no idea what I was actually saying on the megaphone about cancer. So automatically she's got this negative view of me without you know, probably refusing to you know, gain any information as to the frame of reference that I was coming from, and judging from her attitude, she was just like, you know, trying to ask me to move on, blah blah blah, blah, you know, move on, little child, sort of thing. And when I revealed that I knew what I was talking about, that I knew the law, I knew my rights, and I wasn't going to back down, I wasn't going to submit to any authority, she was like, oh yeah, he just wants a show, let's just, you know, let's just leave him to it, sort of thing. So that's basically that. But yeah, I did explain to her, as I explained in my last video, that I did not grant him jurisdiction over me. So there's that. On to the next bit.
Okay, well, thank you very much, officers. But just as a closer, is it okay if I ask for a hug? Please. Can I ask for a hug?
Roman, I don't know the difference between the statutory law
No.
and all the rest of it.
No, they don't.
Well,
No.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for that encounter. As you can tell, I tried to at least smooth things off by sending them some, you know, positive energy in the invitation of a hug. You know, they probably, you know, in the frame of mind that they were in, they may have taken that as a bit of an insult, maybe, but they didn't even react in the slightest. So, you know, my guess is that they were just like, oh, you know, because they were probably talking amongst themselves. Oh God, you know, this guy's not submitting to anything. So, you know, let's just move on. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I try to, you know, leave it on that positive note of offering a hug. I knew I wasn't going to get one, but I at least wanted to try and just at least make that offer, you know. But yeah, that's basically it. As you can tell by the guy who came up to my left-hand side, obviously neither the environmental enforcement officers or the police officers really knew the difference between statute law and common law, which isn't surprising since they're not paid to know, they're not employed to know. In fact, they're discouraged from knowing, just like the rest of us. But yeah, essentially that was that encounter. What did I think of it? Well, essentially, after that had happened, I went back on the megaphone more or less straight away, and said that you know, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've proved that speaking freely in a public area on a megaphone is completely lawful. So I mean, this may not be exactly what I said, but something along these lines. But yeah, make sure that you exercise your rights and maintain them and stand up for them before you have none of them left. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when you speak freely in a public area. You get harassed and intimidated by policy enforcement officers who feel they have the right to stamp all over you when you are acting completely lawfully. So make sure you stand up for your rights before you have none of them left. And I actually got a bit of a round of applause as well, because yeah, again with the last time we'd actually drawn a bit of a crowd, and you know the police officer, I think the police officer that was vocal towards me, she did later on when I was on the megaphone, I could have sworn she may have mouthed something at me from about 50 yards away, but I can't be entirely. She may have just been talking to one of her colleagues and just looking directly at me at the time. But essentially, you know, I sent them packing, and which is interesting. It's normally the police that send us packing, isn't it? But no, when you can prove that you're acting completely lawfully and you can prove that they have no authority whatsoever, what can they do? You know? But yeah. But yeah, what do I think of that? Well, it's just another example of essentially the kind of, you know, parental enforcement mentalities that the police try and do. You know, they try and act like, you know, scornful parents that are trying to discipline unruly children. You know, when in fact we're not unruly children. We are human beings who are just as deserving of freedom, respect, and everything else as they are. Just because they're wearing a fancy uniform doesn't give them authority, okay? And especially if they are trying to derive this authority from some jumped up sense of, you know, of some pretense of legality, because they think to themselves, because they're police officers, they must inherently know better than us. They don't. They're human beings just like us. We are human beings who do not, you know, are not obliged to, you know, do what they say or jump through any hoops. Okay, that's essentially the bottom line. I know I was being respectful. I wasn't even. I mean, even in a sense, I was consenting to the Public Order Act 1986 by basically not causing any harm, you know, any harassment, alarm, and distress, in a sense. But then again, you know, that could be me just acting lawfully and not causing any harm to another human being. So, if you think about it, what jurisdiction do they have over me to begin with at all? They have no jurisdiction. They think just because they got a fancy uniform, they think they can push anyone around. Well, I'm sorry, they can't. You know, and that is one of the things that I demonstrated right then and there. That, you know, essentially they have no authority. They had to back off. That's essentially the thing. So, you know, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, then by all means, you know, spread this video, but also spread the information. The information is much more important. Everything that you know, that protects me and you and every other human on this planet, that is the information that needs to spread. So by all means, look into the difference between statute law and common law. Look into the Bill of Rights. For example, look into the Human Rights Act. You know, look into the legislation and the laws that actually protect us. Because if we're ignorant of all that, then we're not armed against the police who feel they have the right to enforce any kind of, you know, pretentious authority that they really do not have. You know, granted, a lot of police officers, they're decent human beings. You know, they're respectful. They smile. They even give you a hug if you offer one. But some of them are really quite, you know, they're really quite arrogant and quite ignorant. of the law. They try and just bark orders at you and try and expect you to say yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, sort of thing. But I'm sorry, that isn't going to work. You have to prove to us that we are actually obliged, to which you cannot do because there is no obligation. But anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. I'll very soon be hopefully bringing you more of these if I do get harassed by the police. Basically, you know, I send you one as soon as I can after I do get harassed. So, you know, if I start sending more, that means that the police are harassing me more, obviously. And one of the pieces of information I received today, actually, is that the environmental enforcement officers are now not just going around in pairs of environmental enforcement officers, but they're going around also paired up with a pair of police officers as well. So there's 4 of them now walking around. So, you know, by all means, guys, research into this sort of thing. Please do not believe a single word I've said. Use what I'm saying as inspiration to do your own research and, you know, arrive at your own decisions. So by all means, guys, you know, research this, do your own thinking, and hope to speak to you soon. Take care.